Hello everyone, my name is Linan Huang from New York University. I'm a fourth year PhD student and Professor Guangyan Zhu is my advisor. So today we're going to talk about adaptive honeypot engagement through reinforcement learning. So first, the current defense mechanism rely heavily on indicator of compromise, um, especially the low level ones shows in this pyramid. Um, they are very accurate but also unstable. For example, the hash value provide a unique reference to malicious files, but they can output totally different values under a single bit variations, which means that it's caused attackers less to respond to defense based on these low-level LOCs, which basically review the evidence during or after the attacks. So for the higher layer of this network, we have high level information such as how do the attackers launch the attack, what are their goal, and who are they. So these are called threat intelligence, which will be very useful for a proactive defense. So the goal of the proactive defense is to detect malicious behaviors rather than the IOCs that lead to them. And if we can achieve that, attacker have to learn new behaviors with higher cost. So as shows in this pyramid, from the bottom to the top, we change from IOCs to threat intelligence, and there are three things change. First, it becomes more effective because defender can acquire more threat intelligence. Second, it increases stability because attackers suffer more pains to adapt to defense mechanism. However, it's also become more difficult for defenders to obtain threat intelligence rather than the low-level LOCs. So one way to collect threat intelligence is through honeypots. On the right, we have a production system, and on the left, we have a network of honeypot to emulate this production system. The honeypot have the same topology, but there's no production activities, so that any interaction directly revealed malicious activities. We also have honeypots at this gateway device to supervise the outbound data, so that we want to reduce the risk that attackers compromise the real system from the honeypots. Besides detect attackers efficiently, if we want to collect threat intelligence through honeypot, we should interact um, rather than immediately eject attackers when we find the user to be malicious, which means that we should allow attackers to freely explore the honeypot nodes, uh, analyze their behavior so that we can get an investigation reward. At different node, um, the defender could choose different degree of engagement. For example, high or low interaction, purely recording, or ejection. The low interaction just means um, the honeypot emulates less functions and restricts the activities of a user. There are many related works about proactive defense, threat hunting, and honeypot deployment and interaction strategies. Recent work has focused on the optimal timing to eject attackers. And recently, there are also learning techniques in honeypots because we want to learn the intelligence of the data of the honeypots, and we want to adapt to the strategic attacks, and then learn incomplete information of the attack model. In this work, um, we try to fill in the gap of the previous work that we found this urgent need for engagement strategies that are cost effective time efficient, and risk averse. Cost effective means we want to obtain a high investigation reward with low engagement cost. Time efficient means the defender wants to quickly attract attackers to the target honeypots and engage them for a sufficient long period for wealthy threat information. Risk averse means defender should grant proper degree of freedom to the attacker, not too much, not too less, to avoid escape risk. The attackers use honeypots to compromise other protection system, and also the identification risk that the attacker identified honeypots and terminate on their own. So to quantify the risk and obtain the optimal strategy to engage attackers, in this work, we apply the Semi-Markov decision process (SMDP) to model the attack's behaviors. And the second part, besides these three properties of the engagement strategies, we also want it to adapt to a known or evolving attack models. That's the reason why we apply reinforcement learning to obtain adaptive strategies and engage attackers in real time. Also, the transition probability and the Sojourn distribution as a parameter of SMDP characterize attackers' behaviors and can be regarded as threat intelligence, so that it will be rewarding to reconstruct the SME model from the samples we collect. So for the SMDP model, first we have a state to represent attacker's location at a continuous time. On the left hand, we have a honey net to emulate the topology of the real protection system. On the right, the state n+1 represent the normal zone. State Sn+2 means that attackers either ejected or terminated on their own. This stage will be absorbing. At different stage, the defender choose different actions. At honeypot node, they can choose different level of engagement or eject the user. At a normal zone, the defender could choose to attract by exposing some vulnerabilities or eject the user. We also have a transition probability from J to L, and a sojourn time, which is a continuous random variable with probability density function D. We have chosen actions denoted in different colors and formulated attacker footprint. So at each stage, chosen action is taken, and then the attacker chooses to stay for random time and transit to another state. So the transition probability and the sojourn distribution themselves are threat intelligence and can be estimated and constructed from the footprint samples. In particular, if this transition probability and the sojourn distribution also capture the escape risk and the identification risk. So if the next stage is Sn+2, which means that attacker has identified the honeypots and terminate on their own, and Sn+1 means the attacker have escaped to the normal zone. The time at the case transition is denoted by a random variable dk, and we will have investigation reward block by block between time tk to time tk+1. And the first part is the immediate implementation cost. Second part is the net reward rate. Objective of the defender is to optimize the long-term engagement to reward, which is the expectation of the summation from t0 to infinity, but we compute it block by block. We want to find a policy pi to maximize this u as pi, and the value of this maximization is the v as 0. So these things can be represented by dynamic programming form, which is this operator is a contraction mapping, and it means that we will obtain a unique optimal policy by value iteration, policy iteration, or linear programming. For SMDP, we will need extra regular condition to avoid infinite transition within a finite time. So besides the aforementioned economic metrics u as 0 pi, that we compute the optimal policy, we want to ask whether there are some security metrics to evaluate the strategy. So some fundamental security questions to ask, for example, is how attractive is the honey net? How likely will the attacker visit the normal zone at a given time from a honeypot node? And how does the likelihood revolve? So to answer these questions, we need to compute the one-step and the multiple-step transition probability based on a variation of forward common graph equation. So first, security matrix BIJT measures how likely the attackers at initial state I with its state j at time t. For example, here the initial state is at the normal zone with probability 1, and we can see that the attacker can be quickly attracted to the honey net under the optimal policy and keep there with a dominant probability. Besides probability, we also want to have some security metrics about time. For example, the attraction efficiency measures the time to attract attackers from the normal zone to the target honeypots. And also the safe engagement measures the engagement time in a given honeypot before the first escape to the normal zone. And these two security metrics relies on introducing a random variable TID, which is the time of the first weighted to a region D with initial location I. So on the left is the PDF of this random variable from normal zone to the honeypot, and on the right is the PDF from the honeypot to the normal zone. And we can divide the time into different regions. For example, a region of efficient attraction or inefficient attraction, safe time or unsafe time. We can also use average value on this random variable to provide a unique measure for the efficiency and the security of the engagement. We can visualize these values on this by the heat map, and those two results shows. First is that more jumps means more distance. This lead requires a longer time of attraction or engagement. And also this asymmetric structure shows that the attraction time is longer than the engagement time. Also, we want to analyze the sensitivity of our policy for different type of attackers. Y value provides three engagement criteria of risk and utility. Risk, loss, and utility. On the left, we investigate persistency. On the x-axis, A large lambda means that the attacker is less persistent and they require less time to attract him away from the normal zone. And on the right is the investigate intelligence. On the x-axis, a smaller p means the attacker is less intelligent and attraction is less likely to fail. Finally, we show the result. First, our policy achieve a high expected utility and a low risk in general, and the performance degree only on the extreme case of a highly persistent and advanced attackers, which shows that our policy is robust against a wide variation of attackers' persistency and intelligence. So finally, we want to we apply the reinforcement learning for online monitoring of the engagement. So basically, we have to sample the investigation reward, the transition probability, and the solution distribution based on actual honeypot interactions, and use the samples in real time by the Q-learning algorithm. We have choose a learning rate to guarantee a sum-to convergence, and the partial result shows here. First, on the left, different KC is a constant. Different KC shows different learning rate, and defenders have to choose the proper learning rate for a quick and better performance. The right one is too slow, and the green one has too much variations. And also on the right, it shows that the increase in the number of samples reduce the variations and the error of the mean. Finally, there are some challenges we identify in the honeypot engagement learning for future work. First is that it's hard because it's a non-corruptive learning environment. The defender didn't have full control of the system. He can eject attackers, but cannot arbitrarily draw them to the target honeypot and make them review their behaviors. Second is that we learn, we get samples based on real interactions, which means that we should consider risk reduction and the engagement performance during the real interaction. Also, because attackers can terminate on their own, it's important to considering finite convergence rather than assumptive convergence. So finally, a brief conclusion is that we have applied honeypots to collect high-level threat intelligence, aiming to achieve the proactive defense. So we have a SMDP model to model for this attack model, characterize attackers' behaviors, and obtain the engagement strategy that are cost-effective, time-efficient, and risk-averse. Besides the economic metrics, we also have multidimensional security metrics to evaluate the strategies. It's basically the three things, and also we investigate robustness of our policy against a wide variation of persistence and intelligence. Finally, to obtain adaptive strategy, we construct a model to have some threat intelligence, and also engage the attacker in real time. We apply reinforcement learning on SMDP. And that's all. Thank you for your time.